We wanted options, and that's what launched us into real estate. We started looking single family homes, realized that's crazy. We need to look at duplexes, triplexes, and quads. Who doesn't want more under one roof? And then happened to come into something that was qualified as a commercial loan. Realized I didn't know anything about commercial lending or commercial properties, but that process was the launch really for our business and the launch into commercial residential apartment buildings.
Your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Our guest today is Brady Hoffpauir. He's the founder of Ridgeline Equity, where they want to embrace transformational investing by improving communities and encouraging generosity through real estate. Originally, got his master's in engineering management and was a senior project manager for a global 500 company, Simers Energy. Managed large multinational product development programs, but witnessed many in the industry lose or leave their jobs due to market uncertainties. So he sought that stable, right, parallel forms of income, and so that's what pushed him into real estate, like many, right, including myself, looking for some kind of other stable income. And so, but now experienced in acquiring, syndicating, and operating value add commercial multifamily. So he lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, with a wife and two kids. You're going to hear him talk through a number of those things today, obviously with a background in engineering, but how they look at deals differently, how they look at deals with a purpose and even vision, core values, how that aligns, or you should be looking at those things not only just in your own business, but in many other facets of life that he's going to talk about. I know you're going to learn a lot from Brady today. Brady, welcome to the show. Looking forward to the conversation. Honored to meet you. And I know a mutual friend introduced us, introduced us, but you and I had also met at almost the same time in person at a conference. And it's neat how that came about. But I'm looking forward to just you helping the listeners today with a number of things. I know with your background in engineering and a number of, there's even a few things that you said there, you all look at deals differently. And I want to hear more about that and even looking at deals with a purpose and what that means. I know it's going to help inform the listeners and even whether they're active or passive. But first, who's Brady? And give us a little background on yourself, but then moving into this kind of business, why and how, and some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I jump in, just thank you so much for having me on, Whitney. Like you said, it was really interesting how this kind of came together and the connections there. That it's really a small world, really, that we live in. But yeah, a little bit about me. So my wife and I live here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Absolutely love it here. It's one of the reasons, kind of on the side, that got us into real estate, or I should say, back into real estate, and was kind of the launch of our business, was because we loved living here. As you mentioned, I have a background in engineering. I started in engineering. I learned really quickly that I like people. And so quickly transitioned into some more leadership roles, which turned into project management, which turned into management, then back into project management. And honestly, that side of it's really been a key aspect of what's been beneficial to us as well as our investors in on the real estate side is that understanding of managing large projects, large risks, and so on is has been a key element of it. But we got launched into the commercial side by starting looking at some of the smaller single family homes, right? There was some uncertainty in our industry a number of years ago that I'm in, and that uncertainty led us to wanting an additional income on the side, right? So a buffer, if you will, because we didn't want to have to be faced with the challenge of moving somewhere we didn't want to move. So we wanted a buffer, we wanted options, and that's what launched us into real estate. We started looking single family homes, realized that's crazy. We need to look at duplexes, triplexes, and quads. Who doesn't want more under one roof? And then happened to come into something that was qualified as a commercial loan. Realized I didn't know anything about commercial lending or commercial properties, but that process was the launch really for our business and the launch into commercial residential apartment buildings. That lesson of learning that, oh, wait a minute, a property doesn't just have to be tied to its neighbor's value. A property can also be tied to its net operating income, and learning through that process of, wow, there's so many more things that are in our control when that is the value of the property rather than your neighbor, when the value is based on the income, so many more things that we can we can tweak expenses, income, renovations, and so on to affect that and affect that value. That was really the aha moment. But it started with a small 5 unit property, one we did not close on, by the way. But that was kind of the getting us to that edge and that little nudge into really the mindset of commercial real estate. And then I would say through that process, our why has changed over time. And we can kind of dig into some of this a little bit in the show as well. But our why kind of changed. In the beginning, it was like most people, we want some buffer in life, right? We want something that if we have to make a hard decision, we have options, right? And for a lot of people, those options are tied to, well, do we have enough money to do what we're going to do? And so that's was a part of it in the beginning. Where it went from there, Whitney, was we started to realize people around us really wanted to invest in real estate. They wanted the benefits of it, but they ran into two problems. Either they didn't have the time, right? When you start looking at single family rentals, that's time, right? And I joke with people now, I was like, you're either going to get toilets or time, right? You're either going to get the phone calls when things get to go south at the property, or you're going to have your time, and that's through passive investing in real estate. And you can do it both ways. But what we started to understand is a lot more people wanted their time. And so that was the trigger moment to say, you know what, we can do all this. We can kind of help people navigate this world of real estate investing. We understand it. We bring a lot to the table. So why not start structuring a business around that? And then we hired a mentor. I know you've had a mentor in the past as well, but hiring that mentor was really a leap to say, we can definitely do this on ourselves, but I really want to shorten that runway. And that was a big moment for us, was pushing that runway and squishing it down small enough that it could be meaningful to us, but also be meaningful to our investors in our business to really grow much faster than we would have normally on our own. And so in the beginning, like I said, it was started off with, hey, we need some side income. Then it turned into, wow, we can really help people. And it's starting to change again now, right? Which it's good. Every business goes through phases, right? But it's starting to change again, and hopefully we have some time to talk about it as well. But that generosity mindset started coming into our investing and into our business more on the personal side first. And it came through some conversations with my wife and I, towards the end of last year. But now we're starting to really encourage that generosity mindset with some of our investors as well. And that path has been really interesting over time for us. It's been a lot of fun, right? It's been fun to kind of see how it's grown over time, to see how the focus has changed. And yeah, and to really just be able to make different types of impact in people's lives, you know?
Yeah. You mentioned mentors. Yeah. At first, I was hesitant to spend that much money on a mentor, and looking back, it wasn't very much, but it was a ton of money to me at the time, right? To my wife and I. It was a major step. And now that same mentor is like 7 or 8 times the cost, what it cost me years ago with this same mentor, and which most know, who that was listening. But yeah, but couldn't recommend it enough, right? Finding the right
Yeah.
mentor. We've done numerous shows on finding the right mentor, all those things. But now I have mentors for like all kinds of things. So, man, I need mentors in so many different parts of my life, right? It's not just a multifamily deal or somebody that's done that. No, I mean, there's so many things that I need help with, and I want to improve in, right? And so I no,
Yeah.
completely agree. But I want to get to how the why's changed over time and some of that. But you talked about looking at deals differently, right? And
Mhm.
so maybe you could give us an example, more recent example deal, and how you all look at it differently, what that looks like, and let's talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, and some of our lessons are not just ours, but it's people that have asked us to partner with them. And what we found, when you're starting off, you think everybody knows what you don't know. Right? And I'd say it's a huge misconception, right? Because we're all kind of gifted in different ways. And that's what I would say also one of the beauties of one, mentoring, like you said, but two, also partnerships, is as you're getting started, you're figuring out where do you fit in, right, to this team, because not everybody has it figured out, right? Which is why I think multifamily is such a great investing strategy, especially on the active side, is because you get to plug people in to where they're gifted, right? And you get to let them thrive in that business, and really they're bringing benefit to you, and you're bringing benefit to them. And what we started to understand as we got into this more was that our kind of superpower, if you will, was we have an ability to look at these deals and from the perspective of more, looking at the bigger picture of it, right? Not just looking at, yes, we're really good at underwriting or really good at looking at the numbers and where they fall out and this type of stuff. But our superpower became looking at a property and really trying to understand the story of the property and not just the story of what we want to tell people, but the real story of this is an older property. It's got these problems. It has these, right? In looking at, let's say, the business plan of where we want it to go, right? And tying that into, hey, there's also a market that we live in, right? And that market is forever changing. And really this mindset that came in from, I would say, kind of that engineering background, which is when you look at a project, you're not just executing perfectly, right? You never execute perfect. There's always risks that come in. And so that idea that, hey, we're starting today, everything's perfect on paper when we close the property, but then within that first week, everything changes to be imperfect. And yet you still have to operate, right? There's always things that change. There's always things to be considered, especially in the market and in repairs and maintenance as an example. But that mindset of, hey, let's look at the business plan, but let's not take it at face value. Let's plan smartly for what are the mitigations that we have to put in place for, okay, if we have a floating rate loan, how do we mitigate against that? If we can't exit the property when we want to because the market has gone south, well, how do we mitigate that? And we don't know everything about this property, even though we did all the inspections and all the due diligence we can think of. And so how do we mitigate for those as well? And so this mindset of looking at the broader picture, not just what, is on paper in day one in the underwriting that looks beautiful and perfect, but also taking into consideration that much longer term view of, hey, we're going to own this property for 5 years. And if the market's not great, maybe even 7 years. So what do we need to be prepared for so that we're not putting ourselves and our business, right, and our investors by nature of that business at risk by simply not paying attention early, right?
Sure.
And so we found a lot of people in the space that were taking a lot of assumptions about how the business was going to be run that practically speaking cannot be executed, right? And so when we started seeing those, we really started to realize, hey, this is the value that we can really bring into the team. In fact, almost every deal that we've been in, we've changed that deal somehow. Even if we're coming in as a co-sponsor on that deal, we've changed that deal somehow. If in the smallest of ways, at least in running some additional studies on sensitivities, on even now and today, looking at sensitivities of, hey, if the interest rate on the loan doesn't come down, can we survive? Right? Because
Yeah.
it's very tangible today. People are suffering right now because of interest rates. And if we're coming into a new property today, we don't want to make the same, let's say, butter side up assumptions about life's going to be awesome no matter what. We want to look at, hey, if things don't go as planned on interest rates, can we survive this? Right. And if the answer is yes, then great. Right. If the answer is no, well, then what do we need to do to adjust for that? And so that overall picture of, I would say, risk mitigation, kind of overall project mentality of it has really played itself well in looking at these properties. So
Speak to, I know you kind of pride yourself too in looking at deals with a purpose, right? And you have this thing called a freedom map. And tell us a little bit about that. I think it's helpful to think through a deal with a purpose. And we do that in the business on the business side often, but not, I think, often at the deal level. So yeah, talk to that.
yeah, and I think every deal is different, for sure. When we look at the deal, I would say that it even starts before the deal shows up, right? We tend to look at business with a purpose, right? So Nikki and I, goal setting is big in our family, right? Leadership, these are things that we really focus on. And so for us, just as a lifestyle, we want to know where we're going and why we're going to do it. And it's that's a natural part of us, right? We didn't have to have a business to do that. It's now become a natural part of our business. And as part of that, it's also come into how we look at deals as well. Is this a property that's one going to make sense for our investors? Yeah. Is this a property that's going to make a difference, or can we make a difference by owning this property? And we've seen that a lot of times. I'm sure y'all have as well. When you buy these and you're renovating them, you're not just renovating brick and mortar. You're not just putting paint on the wall and making the parking lot look nice or getting rid of some dead trees, many times, especially in the Class C properties, you're actually changing the environment of that property. And when I say that, I think some people want to overlook that, but you're making a very tangible and real impact in this property by, in many cases, changing the tenant base. Oftentimes, in some of these properties, especially the lower income properties, they have people there that a family should not be living next to. Yeah, they're doing things that are attracting the wrong type of people on the property. And these types of people that are coming on property are not creating the best living environment. And so we have an opportunity. We're raising the entire property up from a renovation perspective. That's awesome, right? But we're also creating by simply looking at, hey, these are not the activities that we want to go on in a safe living environment. And so you also have that aspect of making an impact in someone's lives by giving them a nice place to live, making an impact in their lives by giving them a safe place to live. And both of those together are really creating what families really want in a living environment, which is stability. They want a place where their kids can come home and they don't have to realize who's hanging out in the back corner of the parking lot, right? So this idea that, hey, yes, we can do brick and mortar and all these things, and we can't control everything in our life. But some of what we're doing is actually making a tangible difference, not just in the property itself, but in actual people's lives. And then tying that into a generosity component kind of on the investing side as well. So that purposeful focus really, I would say, stemmed from who are we? Right? And that has naturally kind of led into this. And it also helps us when we're making decisions on partnerships as well. Are do these people represent who we want to be about? Or is this someone that we want to be proud to partner with? Or on the flip side, would they be proud to partner with us?
Yeah.
Both can be true. And you mentioned the freedom map. What that really does is that came out of the journey that we went on that led us to saying, hey, as a person and as a business, we want to understand what are our core values. We want to understand what's our vision, what do we really want for the future, and then we want to set some long-term goals that are meaningful and pick some tangible milestones that we can aim for because we actually want to make a difference, right? We don't want to just exist. We don't just want to continue through life and hoping for things, right? We want to make real progress. We want to head towards a destination and not just accidentally get there. And so this freedom map really came from our own personal, I would say, progress of going through those phases of, okay, personally, what is our core values? What is our vision as a family? What are our long-term goals? Okay, let's think about the next 3 months or so, and let's pick some meaningful targets to head down. And then we had investors ask us about the progress, and we said, hey, we'll send it to you. And so slowly over time, we simply started helping other investors understand that, hey, if you're going to put your money in real estate, great. If you're not going to put your money in real estate, great. But you should at least have a destination for what you're wanting to mean as a family, as an investor, as a person in life. And that progress or that process should lead you towards what is the right avenue, right? And is it investing in real estate? It may not be, maybe something else. So
I like you bring up even a family core values and vision, and I rarely hear that, and it's something I was challenged in a couple years ago. I just we think about that in the business, but we don't think about that often, really ever for the family. Or I wasn't raised that way, or to think that way. We try to be so strategic and plan all these things in the business, but man, the thing we would say is the most important get the least amount of intentionality often, right? And yeah, the listeners have heard me harp and harp about spending time with kids and one-on-ones with kids. And there's a book recently recommended. It's called The Family Board Meeting. And anyway, I gave it away for free. If the listeners go back and listen to that, there's a few episodes where we talked about it. I interviewed that author. He's a friend of mine. And but anyway, this was something he mentioned as well. Appreciate you saying that, and because
I need to go look that up now that you mentioned it.
yeah, send me a mailing address, I'll send you a copy of it for free. So I did that for all the listeners, so anybody that wanted one. And so anyway, any listener listening now, if you didn't catch that, you could go back or you can just email info@LifeBridge Capital and tell us you want that book and we'll send it to you. am that big on that relationship at home and that intentionality at home, and so just want to push the listeners in that way as well. So I appreciate you bringing that up. But no doubt in our business and partnerships, and we want to think about those things, and are those partners aligned with our core value, our core values and vision, and all those things? Because man, that can say a lot about thinking about 5 years down the road with this partner. Because often most of these deals are going to take that long, 3 to 5 years or longer. So
Absolutely.
it's a big thing to think through. Brady, what would you say is your biggest challenge right now in the business?
I think I think right now it's people are seeing so many negative stories on the news, right? It doesn't take long for anyone to turn on the news and hear about interest rates, banks closing. I get so many notifications about commercial real estate has had its day, and there's all of this that's out there. I think our biggest challenge right now is honestly starting to help people navigate what does that really mean for this asset class. And I think that's where people are getting lost today, Whitney, is when we see things out in the media, how do we interpret that through the lens of is that where I am? And is that tangible and real for every asset class? And the reality is it's not, right? There's some asset classes, they're hurting. They really are. There's some multifamily product that's out there. Unquestionably, they're in rough times. But there are other asset classes that are out there, and there are investments that are out there that are done well, that are looking at not just the current dynamics, but projecting what future dynamics could be and can we survive that? And I would say the biggest challenge today is helping people navigate through all of the news media that their goal is, of course, to sensationalize life so that they can get commercials, right? So to navigate from what they're seeing in the news and that information and bringing it down to, well, this is this investment, right? This is this investment class. This is this asset class. We're also looking at build to rent now. And I would say soon there's probably going to be coming out a webinar where I've talked to another good friend of mine who's been in this space for a long time. And really the intention of that is exactly to this point. It is, hey, let's have a real conversation about one, what are the real risks, but also where is the market for a lot of this and where is it going so that we can just help people understand, because the more you know, the better position you're in to make a decision. And that's I would say that's the biggest challenge. There's so much negativity around everything right now. It's really helping people to see where we really are, and that not every asset class is subject to everything that we see out there.
Yeah, it is a big battle at the moment because it breeds so much fear, right? Whether it's accurate or not, unfortunately, the media controls so much of that,
Mhm.
and you see enough headlines, you start to get concerned whether, and none of it may be accurate, right? But it still raises concerns, and so no doubt about it, we find it's a time where educating your investors is more necessary than ever,
Yeah.
right?
And there's
And
real risk. There
right.
is real risk.
That's right.
But
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah. Yeah. You are correct. In that thought, do you have any predictions or thoughts for the next 6, 12 months, Brady? And I know nobody knows for sure, right? But I do say what we believe affects what we do now, right? Whether we're buying or selling or whatever it may be. So yeah, any thoughts on the next 6, 8, 12 months?
yeah, I do honestly. I think everybody kind of has their own crystal ball they look through when they look to the future. I have in the life of real estate and in life kind of a short window, right, that I've been engaged in. I have the fortunate situation that I know a lot of people that have a much longer window in real estate. And so I think that's a huge benefit to people. And it's also part of why I'd really encourage people to invest heavily in their time with mentors, whether it's paid or not paid, putting people around you that have that experience and that can buffer things that you don't know, right? And so I'd say some of this is really leaning on them, but my crystal ball would probably say that I think over the next 6 to 12 months, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity. We're starting to see some of that now. We're starting to see some motivated sellers because of where the market is. And it's not just interest rates. Some of the Gulf Coast cities are that have been impacted by different weather situations. Insurance is going crazy in some of these places, and people are truly hurting in some of these properties. And so we're starting to see some of that come to the surface. I think we're just beginning to see some of it come to surface. So I would tend to agree with what a lot of people have said. It's not my own thoughts, but just that 6 to 12 months from now, I truly believe there's going to be a lot of opportunities. And I think those opportunities are going to bring, I would say, meaningful returns to people that can find them because they're difficult to find. Sometimes they're not brought to market, right? Sometimes it's in just talking and networking with people and knowing people. And I think it's going to be good for the investors. I think the bank situation is going to work itself out because we've now pushed so much pressure down on the banking situation and the interest rates and trying to get inflation under control. I heard recently they're going to consider pausing to see how much effect they've already had because there's a long lag in that. And I don't know that we're done seeing that. But at the same time, I do believe that that has a tendency to correct itself, which is honestly one of the reasons why I mentioned built to rent earlier. I I think we have a very high shortage in housing units in the US, and built to rent does fill a nice gap between people that want to get out of apartment living, like millennials that are in their family formation years, as well as empty nesters versus owning a home, which is so expensive now in that middle gap there. The reason I bring that into this kind of forward looking discussion is because as you're doing those development projects, ultimately there are some projections that by the time you get to permanent debt that we're going to be in a much better situation. Now you may not underwrite it like that, but the point is I feel like there's going to be opportunities here throughout the remainder of the year and even beginning of next year that are really going to do well for some investors that know where to find the deals.
No doubt. Brady, all right, a few final quicker questions towards the end here. What's your best source for meeting new investors?
For meeting new investors, referrals is a big source for us. For whatever reason, people like us. So referrals is a big one. But also, we find a lot of people out on LinkedIn. And then Facebook would be behind that. We've got a lot of great connections out on LinkedIn. There's a lot of people out there looking for how can we invest in real estate and where to go.
What are some of the most important metrics that you track? Could be personally or professionally.
Wow, that's a great question. For us, because we're trying to grow a generosity component in our business. We're really focused and honing in on growing our investor base, especially people that are looking to make an impact in the world around them in different ways. And because of that, one of the key metrics right now is honestly referrals, right? Every time we're talking to people, we're asking, "Hey, do you know somebody that could benefit from this? Do you know someone that can benefit from this?" Because we're trying to be super intentional about growing that side of the business because we can make a pile of money in our bank account. There's lots of ways to do that. But if that's all that there is in this world, then we're missing it. And trying to encourage that mindset, you need investors, right? You need people that embrace that. And that's one of the reasons why that's one of our key metrics right now is how many referrals are we getting and have we asked people for those referrals? And are we providing something to people that really is valuable to them? Yeah.
What about some habits that you are disciplined about that have produced the highest return for you?
I would say the habit of really kind of taking it back to that freedom map mentality of setting where do you really want to go? What are some long-term goals to get there? And then breaking that out into, okay, for the next 90 days, what are we going to focus on? And then I would say I have one here to start with the wealth planning and savings, but the daily habit of, well, I have one of really focusing in on when you start your day, there can only be so many important things in your day or else you're going to get lost. And so really just writing down and being intentional about your schedule at the beginning of the day and saying, if I want to get to this destination in the future, well, then I better have an important goal today to do this, right? And then focusing in on that and making sure that that's the most important thing in your day. So
Like that. I like something simple like that, but most do not do that. Right. And I find I don't do it often, but I'm trying to do it more and more. That exact thing you're talking about. So it's like writing down some specific things and even thinking about it the night before, looking at my calendar. But what I find writing it down makes a big difference. Like you might think you got it up here in between your ears, but man, there's something about putting a pen in your hand and actually writing it down.
absolutely.
And what I find too is if I can't get those things all done that day, then I can carry that over the next day, right? And writing it down again the next day, you kind of
It's painful.
that's right. That's right. Oh, I should have got that done, right? But
Yeah.
it's nice being able to check those things off. There's
Yeah.
something about being able to accomplish those things. But anyway, no, I think it's
And one final thing with that, Whitney, is I really learned that in the next 5 seconds, really just I would say people need to write down their gains, and that's made a tremendous impact with me. I'm a highly driven person, and I need to see progress over time. And I, for a long time, neglected just focusing in on writing down, hey, this is what was good about today. Even if it's super simple. Hey, I got to go on a walk with my daughter. Whatever it is, just writing down, hey, these are my gains. This is how I'm making progress, because that's so important, especially for the entrepreneur, but also for just life.
How do you like to give back?
We part of that, we call it transformational investing. So in the beginning of the show, we talked about how we like to change communities. Another part of that is the generosity component. Kind of a good friend of mine coined the phrase generosity machine fueled through real estate. We we love now looking at how can we take some of the profits we're making in real estate and make an impact in the world around us. And then how can we help other investors understand how they could do it on their own if they want to. So those conversations are real key for us. We also volunteer. We love to volunteer and help out. Leadership, like I said, is a real big key component of what we do. We love helping families. I would say to maybe put a broader picture on it, making tangible, positive impacts in families. And one of those ways is through adoptions. We've helped with that before. So all of that, though, is kind of now getting funneled through how can we be generous through what we're already doing in real estate.
Awesome. Brady, pleasure to meet you, have you on the show. And as we talk about your background in engineering and looking at deals differently and the vision and core values and the partnerships and even in the deal itself, just I think it's great. And just bringing to light that the core values and vision for your home as well. I just still think it's so important and want to push the listeners to consider that as well. Even like getting the family involved, right? And creating those things so it gives some ownership to not only your spouse who should have some ownership there, but your children as well, right? If you want them to live these things out, I mean, it's something for them to be involved in that, and then like to see it on the wall or something, right? It's like it's so neat. But anyway, I just appreciate you just speaking life into some of those things to us, and but even how your why's changed over time, and I think we didn't dive into that as much, but I think it does happen, right? And anyway, so grateful to meet you. How can the listeners get in touch with you and learn more about you?
Yeah. So a couple of ways that they can find us out on LinkedIn. You can find me there. Also go to our website. If they want that resource called the Freedom Map, it's ridgelineequity.com/freedom map, all one word, or they can go to the under the learn menu on our website. They can find it there, but you can find us either one of those ways. We're also on Facebook as well. So wherever people want to connect with us.
Thank you for being with us again today. I hope that you have learned a lot from the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you're telling your friends about the Real Estate Syndication Show and how they can also build wealth in real estate. You can also go to lifebridgecapital.com and start investing today.